my name is Cayetana and I work at UQ as a UQ Ventures Programs Designer. In this series of 3 videos today, I'm going to show you a little bit more about Agile, what Agile's methodologies are, and what Agile project management entails. We will also focus on a methodology called Scrum. As you can see in the contents, we're going to have 3 videos in this series that will address the following. What is Agile? I will provide a little bit of background and we'll go through the foundation document called Agile Manifesto in the 2000s. Then we'll do a second video on Agile project management, and the third will focus on how an Agile methodology called Scrum works and how you can use it in designing and managing projects and teams. So what is Agile? Let me give you a little bit of background on the methodology, but also on the foundational document called the Agile Manifesto. Agile is not a new thing, even if it's very trendy these days. And if we can trace it back to the Toyota when they started in the early 19th century, and how they designed the manufacturing process. We won't stop on that, and I won't provide too many details on the manufacturing process and how they transitioned from being a retail company to an automobile company. But I definitely suggest you do so in your own time because it's a fascinating process. But I think it's very important to highlight that the Toyota way, or the lean manufacturing way that they put in place, had these 2 key areas, 4 sections and 14 principles. Definitely you can check out on Google if you want to learn more. What I found very fascinating about the 2 key areas that you have here highlighted on this PowerPoint is that they are focused on continuous improvement and what you call in Japanese kaizen, if I'm pronouncing it right, and respect for people. And that's something that we keep coming across in Agile, that both processes and people go pair with pair, and they go at the same time. Processes are never over people, and what is really, really important for Agile to work is for the people to be first, to be on board and to be trusted. And that's something that Toyota did really, really well from the very beginning in the early 19th century. In terms of the 4 sections, they have a long-term philosophy where they focus always in the long term and the strategy of the company, even if that means at an operational level some things have to change or some things are not profitable in the short term. They also focus on having a right process from the get-go, in taking care of the right of the people at the organization and making sure that you train them and retain that talent, and by always solving the problem at the root and being transparent about it, so everybody knows what was the problem and everybody knows how to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I also copied here a little bit of a structure of how the Toyota way works if you want to take a deeper look into it. So a lot of time passed between the early 19th century and the 2000s, but 100 years later, a group of IT people came up with what we call now the Agile Manifesto. And this Agile Manifesto was incredibly disruptive back in the day because it really redefined the rules of the game in terms of programming and software development, and eventually on program management and business and product development, etc. So this Agile Manifesto has 4 core values that you can see here in gray, right? It has individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and this kind of reflects also that Toyota way we were just talking about and how people always go first. Working software versus comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and the importance of responding to change. So I just listed here on purple what I consider the key elements of these 4 core values plus the other 12 principles that follow. And in my opinion, what is really important is that the human is at the center, either the customer and the staff, that delivery always takes place first versus reporting, and that done is better than perfect. That team collaboration and transparency is always the key for project success, and that innovation, creativity, and change are really valued and really put at the center of it, more than comprehensive documentation or more than following a plan. This can have its cons as well, and we'll talk about it. But this document here, that is already 20 years old, it really is the inception of the Agile movement and what all the other Agile methodologies that follow from it. So here I have just listed the 12 principles that follow the 4 core areas in the Agile Manifesto. I won't stop here, otherwise it will be a long video, but I'll definitely recommend you to look into it and read them through. They kind of explain in further detail the 4 core values outlined in the previous slide. So what is Agile and how it compares to what it was before? When we are talking about Agile development, we usually compare it with Waterfall, right? Waterfall was an approach to software and project management that is a step-by-step process, right? Or what we call a sequential stages. So what you do is you upfront plan everything that has to happen, provide extensive documentation for every stage, define the requirements and the scope and everything that has to be developed in that project. And you aspire to not have to change anything, right? Which is very hard, as you can understand. And the project manager is really involved in the process, right? It's kind of supervising everything that everybody does, and sometimes being really involved in the daily activities and in its execution, right? So as you can see here, it's called waterfall because it does look like a set of stairs or like a waterfall, and it goes in a linear top to bottom way. First, you define the requirements, then you design your product, you code it, you test it, and you implement it. It's important to say, though, that when we talk about waterfall, there is clearly an implementation phase and a testing phase, okay? Sometimes when we talk about waterfall, it's very easy to mimic it and say, oh, waterfall, you don't get to test with customers, you don't talk to customers. You do, but there is just one stage for it, rather than more circular way, or more kind of spiral loop way to do so. In Agile, though, as you can see on the left in this circular graph, it's a continuous cycle where what you do is you define your requirements and you plan for it, you design, you develop, you release, you collect data, you monitor it, and then based on that feedback and that insight that you get from tracking and monitoring how a small, high-functioning piece of project worked, you keep delivering the next feature of your project, or you keep expanding that existing feature of your project. The idea is that you get to test something smaller every time rather than develop the whole product or project in one go with only one phase to test it. A big difference as well with Agile versus Waterfall is that the customer is highly involved and you get feedback and insight from the customer pretty much at every stage, which means that the project can evolve and can change. That can create sometimes issues of what we called scope creep, which means that the more and more features that wants to be added to the scope of the project, which can create delays. But it's also really important in terms of being flexible and open to innovation and changes, especially when big things happen outside your control, like a global pandemic. It's really important to be in close contact with your customer and your environment and be able to change to adjust to the circumstances quickly. Enjoyed this short video about Agile and a little bit of Agile's background and the Agile Manifesto. If you want to know more about Agile project management or Scrum, please check out the next 2 videos that you should find in the UQ Ventures YouTube channel. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye!